As you can see, it's 114 commits ahead of master. It's been a very large undertaking, and I want to just take you through how it works in this video. By the time you see the video, this will be merged, it will be available, it will even have a stable tag if you prefer to use melp as stable. But I'm doing this before I release it, which I hope you agree is reasonable. So on the left, you can see what I'm going to walk you through, and then on the right, I will actually walk you through it. A quick reminder of how GTD works, because it will be a good overview of some of the details that are relevant here. And when I'm done going over this diagram, it'll be in the bottom left. It'll be much smaller, but it should help you keep track of what's happening. So the core idea behind GTD is that everything that comes your way is stuff, right? And you don't know what it is yet until you actually process it and clarify it. So all the stuff goes into the inbox. And then when you clarify, when you process the inbox, you're going to clarify every item, and you'll go through this particular kind of diagram. And so first you say, is it actionable? And if it is not actionable, then it could be trash. It could be a someday maybe. It could be a reference. It could be knowledge. If it is actionable, it could be on the left side a multi-step action. So it takes multiple actions to finish, in which case it is defined in GTD as a project. And otherwise, it's going to be a single action. If it's less than 2 minutes, just do it now. Otherwise, if you can delegate it, give it to somebody else. And if you have to do it yourself, it becomes the next action. And if it has to be done at some particular time and in no other way, then it's a calendar item. It's an event. It's an appointment. That's it. That is all of GTD as far as like the day-to-day flow. And then beyond that, you have the horizons, and I've implemented some of those, and then we will cover those. Okay, that's one thing done. Great. So now let's go over what capturing to the inbox looks like. Throughout this entire video, I'm going to be using just commands. I'm not going to be using any keyboard shortcuts. That's a configuration matter. I want to show you what the commands are, and then you can bind them yourself. There's also a fairly extensive documentation that you can see yourself in Emacs itself. And so you can use that to get a sense of how to configure it, how to use it to see stuff in this video in more detail, and to have access to all of the commands and all the customizable options that are given to you. Anyway, let's begin. Let's capture to the inbox. The way you capture to the inbox is Org GTD capture. This is also customizable. There's an option for this, but when you capture it, you get to choose by default either to the inbox or to the inbox with the link of where this comes from. And we're going to have a first item, which is make a video about Org GTD 3. And then I'm going to finish capturing that. And you can see at the bottom, it created something with source, workbench, Org GTD sandbox, GTD inbox.org. The GTD directory is, for this video, the directory that Org GTD uses to store all of its data. You can also configure this yourself. Let's configure another thing. Let's capture another thing. And let's capture, I don't know, doctor's appointment. Okay, we have two things into the inbox, which is enough to showcase the concept of processing the entire inbox. So let's move on to that. So now the way you process the inbox is fairly simple. Org GTD process inbox. You see here we have a whole new buffer that got created. The name is pretty long. We've also created a particular ID, a unique ID that represents the string of the heading, as well as the date at which you started parsing it. This is largely so that you can come back to this later at any point, because this is a regular buffer. There's nothing different about it. You can stop and go do whatever you want if you want. This is just Emacs, right? There's nothing magical or weird or different. You're not being blocked here. You can do anything you want. The only thing that is opinionated about this is that it is going to clear out all the other windows to give you a pure view of what you clarify. We can configure this later to show more information, and we will talk about this when we get to the horizons later on, okay? But for now, you have all these commands, and then we're gonna just choose one of the buffers, the only buffer we have, and come back to it and clarify it. Now, this is just make a video. I'm going to record it now. I don't feel the need to edit this any further, but you could if you wanted. When you're done, as you can see above, you can call Org GTD organize. There's a minor mode here that is available to you that you can use with its custom key map. And so in the configuration options, you can see specifically which key maps you can use to have custom key bindings for this particular buffer, for this particular minor mode, so that the key bindings don't impact anything else in your Emacs life. But for now, we're going to organize this. And this gives us a menu. This is a transient menu, like in Magit, or Magit, depending on how you want to pronounce that. And it's got all the basic elements that you can see in the GTD diagram on the left, with one additional thing, which is a habit. And the habit is just an org mode habit. There's a small interface to help you enter the habit. And the main reason this is there is so that it is easier to create agenda views around all this information. Otherwise, habits get tricky to manage separately and to kind of surface, or so I found anyway. Okay, so let's say that make this video is a single action. It's actually really going to be a project because I have to record it, edit it, and so forth, but let's make it a single action. So I'm going to hit S to choose that. And that's it, we're done. As you can tell, we've moved directly over to the next item, which was doctor's appointment. Now, doctor's appointment, this is going to be, again, Org GTD organize, but this is going to be a calendar item. This has to be done at a specific time, at a specific date. And because the doctor won't just see me at any random time, right? So I get to choose when this is going to happen now, but I'll make it 2 hours from now, from when I record this video. So we'll just do that. And that's it, and we're done. And now we're back into the window that we had before we started processing the inbox. Okay? And so this is relatively important, I think, is that when you're done processing, you're kind of back to where you were in Emacs before you started doing this. So this is basically clarifying most things. Now I want to clarify a project. I want to show you what a project is according to Org GTD. And for this, I'm following the pattern, the default pattern that org mode itself uses for projects, because it is still the easiest way for me to write code around this. It is not as free as a lot of people would like, but it's a work in progress. Maybe version 4 will have very open, very complicated, very complex projects with multiple things you can do. Anyway, let's take you through what a project is right now. So let's again capture something for now. And I don't know what a good project is. Buy a house. Sure. Right. So now let's process the inbox again for now. And now we've got this. Now, buy a house is a big project. The way a project works in Org GTD is you have a heading and then you have subtasks. And so find a location you like might be the first task, right? And then you might have find a realtor and then go through houses, buy house, right? Move in, unpack things. Could be a very simple, very rough, bad project for how to do this, because there's more steps than that. You probably have to go through the bank and so forth. But the point is, this is how a project is recognized in Org GTD. So when you choose organize and you choose project, it's just done. So we use this dependency org edna. So first, let's look at the data as it is stored after the work we have done. We have this file called org GTD task, which probably will be created for you because that's the default way for this to work, to have minimal configuration, but you can add this as you desire. Well, there's one way to customize it, so you can choose where to refile. multiple project headings, multiple areas where to refile your information. So when we made this project, it also by default created this project's heading with a custom Org GTD property of projects and a trigger here used by Org Edna, such that, but let me show you. When we have something here and we found a location that we liked, all we have to do is then trigger the org agenda normal behavior of changing the to-do state. So we do this with T for to do, and then here D for done. And it was marked as done on the right side, and on the left side, you'll see a number of things happened. One, the stat cookie got updated by house is now 1 out of 6. And then find the location you like got marked to done, and more importantly, find a realtor got changed to next. So if you turn on the global miner mode Org GTD mode, this mode here, you will see it show up over here in, oh, actually, you will see it show up over here in the mode line. And what this does is it wraps around the agenda functions, the agenda commands, and makes sure that they all are prefixed with the Org GTD variables required for Org GTD to work. You might ask, why? The answer is pretty simple. It's actually because we want Org GTD to optionally work completely and completely override the default behavior of org mode, but your emacs is your emacs, and it should always work the way you want it and you need it to work. So there is one way for you to have zero configuration Org GTD works, and then there are ways for you to bring in the bits you need yourself. But this miner mode is the easiest turnkey way to get it going. So with this miner mode, what happens if we refresh the agenda view with G? Well, we refresh and all of a sudden, the next task has shown up. Now we have to find a realtor. So this is pretty powerful. Okay, so we have all of this. Now let's take a look at one-off clarifications. What does that mean, one-off clarifications? Well, actually, this is one of the coolest little things I was able to do with Org GTD 3. Let's say we have a random file and we'll call it randomfile.org in the temp directory. And over here, I have a heading which I want to make into a task. Now that I'm here, all I have to do is choose one of the Org GTD clarify functions, specifically just clarify item. And this will create a one-off clarify flow for me to work off of this heading. So let's say this is a simple task, and I will delegate this to myself later. This is going to be publish the video, right? Now, yeah, the heading doesn't change. The ID doesn't change. That becomes a minor detail for you much later. Like at this point, you don't care anymore, right? This is kind of what it was earlier, but the ID doesn't really impact your life. And if it does, you can change it and run the update functions that org provides and so forth. Anyway, let's run Org GTD organize now. And this is going to be another single action. So great, done, fantastic. And you can see it is also it is also gone completely now from this random file because we moved it, right? It's no longer necessary to have it here because now it's in GTD. So now what if we engage again? Wow, look at that. Publish the video. It's right here. It's kind of nice, isn't it? And so now if we go there, it is now in action. It's an action that got added to the GTD tasks file. So this is a way for you to, as you work through Emacs, as you do your work, as you go through your org mode files, you're able to clarify and add the items to GTD as you want, as you find them, as you clarify them. So it's a much more seamless experience than what it was before in Org GTD 2, when you had to add things to the inbox and then reprocess them. Okay, so now this is a fair bit of the clarifying work, but there's one thing we have to cover still, and that is the hooks. Now, when you're clarifying the items, you are often going to want to add information to each of these items, and org mode provides a plethora of options for this. You have the tags, you have the effort, you have the categories, you have all the properties you want, you have the scheduled and deadline, you have all of these things you may want to add to a task that you're clarifying, because this enriches the engage view. This makes it more valuable, more useful, easier to filter. So let's take a look at the default view, the default way that Org GTD comes, and then how you can customize it further. So by default, Org GTD actually comes with this second line. Org GTD comes with an organize hook, which is a list with one item, org set tags command. Now let me execute this, evaluate it. And now let's try to process an item. Let's try to clarify an item. And let's see what that does now. So I'm going to go back to the random file because why not? And I have great imagination, so we'll do this. And I'm going to clarify this item. And this item I'm going to now organize. And I'm going to say this is a single action. And now I'm being asked for tags. So the hooks are going to apply every time you organize, and they will give you the chance to add a decoration to the items that you're clarifying, such that they can surface later and be valuable to you. So here, if I say that the tag is a phone call, for instance, this is an @ which has a context, then again, I have a tag here that got added. You can see on the right side, this @call. And further, if you're familiar at all with org mode and agenda view, this will not be surprising to you. This now shows up over here, and the tag is on the right side. So this is pretty powerful. But wait, there's more. So those tags are convenient, but you probably don't want necessarily all of the operations to apply to every single action or every single type of task that you clarify. For instance, you may not want to add tags to things you put in the trash. And by default, Org GTD is going to do this because it doesn't want to tell you what's right and what's wrong. But this is probably something you'll want to modify. So how can you modify it? Boy, am I glad you asked. Let me show you. Org GTD provides a helper function, which you can see here. It's an organize type member P. And the idea behind this function is to make your life easier by allowing you, when you write hooks, when you write your own functions to add to the organize hooks, to define when they are going to run. So this is a function that is going to return true if at the time the hook runs, the object that you are clarifying is one of the followings. So if it's a quick action, so single quote quick action or single quote single action, and so forth, right? All of these are going to be the normal elements, but it's worth looking at the last three. Project heading is only going to run when you are running an organize hook on the top level element of the project. So in practice here, if we were to work with our buy a house projects, the organize hooks that run on project heading would run on buy a house, but unless they are also defined as running for project task, they would not run for these. You might ask, why have this separation? Well, there are some things, and the next one we'll look at, the area of focus, is a great example. There are some things that you want to set once per project and not per task. Whereas the context, whether it's a phone call or while you're driving or at the computer or a chore or an errand to run or grocery list, you might have very different tags on different tasks of a project. So let me show you in practice an example with the area of focus. So the area of focus is a function that you'll be able to use. It's got an alias so that it feels when you use it like one of the other org mode commands, org set tags, and so forth. For the sake of package management, it actually has this different name here, but you can ignore that for the most part. The important bit is the logic here. You can see it's very, very simple logic. And all I say is, basically, I want to run set area of focus on item at point unless the item I am clarifying is a project task, trash, knowledge, or quick action. And this is how you use this function. You can use it with an if, you can use it with an unless, but this is it. This is your interface. And this allows you to create an Org GTD flow, a clarifying flow, an organizing flow that is going to be the most meaningful for you. Okay, well, we've seen this and we've now teased the area of focus. So let's take a quick look at what this area of focus is. And as you can tell, this starts with a default list of values, but you can change these to whatever you want, whatever's meaningful to you, because I don't know your life. But the way this is going to work, you will probably be fairly unsurprised to hear, is going to be very much like what we have in this scratch buffer over here. So the way this works is we're going to add org GTD. Oops, don't need to add this quote. We can do it this way. Org GTD set area focus, org set tags command. You can remove this, actually for the sake of simplicity, let's remove the set tags command so that only the area of focus is running. Okay, so now that we've done this, we are prepared to take a look at how the area of focus works. First, let's say you're moving in from Org GTD 2, or you are finally ready to start using areas of focus. In the Getting Things Done book, it is recommended that you only focus on direct tasks and projects for a while until you get a sense of the system, until it is more of a part of how you do the work. And eventually, when you're more comfortable, you move up the horizons. And area of focus is horizon number 3. Well, horizon 2, technically. Because the tasks are ground, and then horizon 1 is projects. So let's say, so there's 2 ways to do this. One would be not clarifying, but just adding something. And you would do this with set on item at point, like this. And this lets you choose something, and this provides completion options with the strings that you have given in the customized value. So here, let's say, make a video about Org GTD 3 is, I don't know, career, right? Nothing seems to have changed, but there it is. The category is set to career, right? And we can also do this through the engage view. And you can see now career is reflected here. So we're going to decide that publish the video is also a career move. So we're going to do this with a function called Org GTD area of focus set on agenda item, because working through the agenda logic requires slightly different logic in Emacs Lisp. And we're going to do it this way. And as you can tell, this has added a career category. And if I refresh the agenda view, career now shows up. So this is all well and good, but there's some questions about what else we can do with all of this. So there's one more thing that I want to take a look at in the calendar. I want to take this doctor's appointment, and I want to make sure this is a health item. And then I want to show you a view that exists that is specifically for an area of focus review. So this is called review area of focus. And again, you can choose one, and it is also completed. So here, let's choose career for now. And this will generate one, and it will take a little while because it does go through like 90 days. But it will pull all the information, active projects, next actions, reminders, routines, and so forth, that have to do with the various with the various elements of this area of focus. So if I take buy a house, for instance, actually here, let me do something fancy here. If we engage and we know that find a realtor is a, what's the word? If we know that this is a home problem, right? Then you'll notice this sets the category of the project to home, not of the task itself, because the task doesn't care so much, but the project really does. Now let's take a look at the area of focus of home. And you can see we've got an active project of home buy a house, steps 1 out of 6. And then the next actions are find a realtor. And then there's reminders, routines, and incubated items. And those are just empty, right? And that's fine. So if I review this time health, the doctor's appointment shows up. So this is a way to have a very specific, focused slice of your life through the view of your areas of focus. Moving forward, now let's talk about horizons. In GTD, horizons are a way of thinking about your life from much higher levels. So when you're clarifying, you have the option of toggling a view of the horizons that you can store into an org mode file to help you clarify and help you make decisions about whether an item is part of your life or not, to help you decide whether this is something you will take on, something you will do or not. So let's take a look at how that works. So if I take a random file and I say, oh, actually, I'll say include org-ql in org GTD, right? And I'll clarify this. When I clarify this, this is the default view, but I can actually modify this view. First of all, I have a function to toggle the horizons window, and it will create, if it doesn't exist, a default view of this file called horizons.org, which will be, again, you can customize the name of this file if you prefer a different name, and you can choose what goes in here. The areas of focus can be useful to have displayed here because you may not always have them all handy. So, like home, health, career, family, goals, happiness, world peace and purpose and principles, to explain things in ways that everyone can understand, right? And possibly visual line mode might be interesting. So this is a way to have this displayed while you're clarifying to help you choose whether this is something you want to include. Because if you look at this and you say, oh, this task doesn't make any sense here, then you know that one of those two may have to change if you want to do this or if you don't want to do it, right? So like in this case, based on what I've written, there's nothing here. But if I say that one of my goals is effective GTD with low code, then you know what? Yeah, maybe this makes sense. So maybe I can organize this and make it a single action for later. And this is going to be, I don't know, career again, because why not, right? So this is one of the ways you can do this. And if you want this to show up automatically, there's a variable, org GTD clarify show horizons. And you can set this variable to being where you want the window to show up, top, right, left, bottom, like this, right? Such that if I go back to the random file and I say one more thing, and then I clarify this, now the horizons window shows up. And again, I can still toggle it if I don't like it, right? If I want to remove it, I can toggle it, but by default, it will be there. And again, this is a command you can call here, and that means you can bind this command to key binding on specifically the key map for the minor mode during the clarify. So you don't have to pollute your entire emacs with this function because it's only useful here really. At least it's, you know, it's always useful to see the horizons, but it's most useful here. So if you want to really seriously limit how this shows up, you have this option. Okay, so this is pretty much, this is almost everything. Now we have to take a look at troubleshooting. There's a couple of commands you can look at for troubleshooting purposes. And what troubleshooting means in this particular situation is, what if you have data that is malformed in your GTD system that could fall through the cracks? The way this is set up is all these functions here. And they're all going to show agenda views that surface items that are calendar, incubated, habit, delegated, single action projects, but are technically not going to show up because of the way the views are configured and because of the way the items should exist. So if you're ever curious, or as part of your monthly review or whatever, you can call these functions and you can take a look at them. This is the key, this is the core, this is how you troubleshoot. Now let's take a look at how you can use Org GTD and extend it and do additional things with it. First, we have to look at with Org GTD context. And the simplest way to look at that is actually to take a look at this Org GTD engage function we've been looking at the entire time. Now, as you can tell, this is going to be actually a very, very simple function from the perspective of what it does. It will look big, but don't let this fool you. Everything here between those two parens is setting one variable, which is org agenda custom commands, for the sake of this operation. That's it. So take a look at what we're doing here. I'm calling prepare agenda buffers. This is a way to make sure that all the variables, this is a way to make sure that all of the buffers that will be used by Org GTD context are going to have the right state. That means the right to do keywords and so forth. And then I call with Org GTD context, which is a macro that basically wraps the behavior here in all of the information that Org GTD needs to sanely override org agenda and org mode. So when you set the org agenda custom commands here, and then you call org agenda, you get all of the files and all of the configuration that Org GTD has, and you get to leverage all of that with only this much code. I was trying to do something even cleaner for version 3, but it proved too difficult, and because I haven't been able to free us from the requirement to configure org agenda custom commands yet. So since you have to learn how to do it anyway, this is just an easier way for you to create your own customizations by adding your own functions to your configuration and calling them. So this is how Org GTD context works. It's a wrapper around whatever logic you want. Now let's talk about adding tasks programmatically. This is one of the exciting bits of Org GTD 3. Maybe I should have put this first, but I like to save the best for last. So what does this mean, adding things programmatically? Well, it's actually very simple. I've added a couple of functions: Org GTD habit create, Org GTD calendar create, Org GTD delegate create, incubate, and single action create. And what these functions do is they allow you to programmatically insert an item into the GTD system. So underneath here, we have an example of a function that you could use if you wanted to automatically add a reminder 3 days from now that you sent an email to someone about a topic. And you could add this as a hook, message send hook. Now, this code as is probably dangerous, because if you send a lot of emails, you're going to get one reminder per email. But you might be able to have a separate function that you call that wraps things and so forth, right? The point is, this is highly possible, and it is going to allow you to really leverage all of the power of Emacs. So, for instance, let's take a look at Org GTD delegate create. This is how this function works. You call it and you pass a topic with the string you want to see in the agenda, delegated to being the name of the person to whom you delegated it, and then a check-in date. And you can use an org read date and pass a default +3 day, which will generate a date for 3 days from now. So this allows you to generate data to put into your GTD flow when you're doing whatever else you need in Emacs. All right, so this is it. This is the whole thing. This is all I wanted to cover in the basic view of Org GTD 3. I hope you enjoy it. You can find me on GitHub or on Discord. And if this provides value to you, please consider donating, because I put a very large amount of time and effort into this. See you all next time.